because it does. Okay. Do you hear me? Yes. Hello, welcome to everybody. My name is Polina. I come from Bulgaria, and today I will be talking about my research on the bench in Eastern European context, or particularly Bulgarian context. This is my only visual, thanks to the design team. I think it's very beautiful. So everyone would be focusing on my voice now. So my practice actually focuses, I graduated as a graphic designer, but I have interdisciplinary practice, and I work on the topics around architectural and digital systems and structures that kind of influence our body, our movement, and also kind of the social patterns that we and practices that we engage with. So actually, in that sense, the bench is quite interesting as an object to observe. From an architectural point of view, it's this place where kind of you can meet people. It's a meeting point, a separation point, but also it breaks kind of public spaces. And there's like a certain certain rules by which benches should be placed in public space, that they should be kind of at the edges of our public squares where the view is unobstructed and you can kind of pause and reconnect with your surroundings, but also with the people around you. So it already is this place of kind of social contact, interaction, and observation. However, I'm not sure if it's kind of for every Eastern European country, but particularly in Bulgaria, you have benches in front of many, or like almost every housing building or every residential building. It's usually they're quite busy with elderly people sitting down and observing and talking, maybe gossiping, which I find kind of very, it's just a very natural thing that you can see in Bulgaria almost every day. And I wanted to kind of go into and track how it kind of ended up in front of housing buildings. And it kind of tracks back to a life in the village where workers went to work for very long hours and were very isolated from society. And they really needed to reconnect to their surrounding and social environment. So those benches started popping up in front of houses, and where the workers can sit down after the day, and they can stop passers and talk with them and ask what happened in the village or in the center. And those benches kind of became this kind of medium, this information medium that's and vehicle for communication that started popping up around. And it also came to the city when people moved with industrialization to the city. So now we also have it in the city where people continue to gather and continue to observe and interact. Why I started this research is actually not with focus on the bench, but actually it started with as research about my grandma. And here it kind of becomes a bit more personal and more, it's kind of this personal fascination and personal stories. So my grandma was actually born before the Second World War. She was a teenager when we went under the communist regime, and she was already retiring when we were a democratic country. So her whole life, she actually spent under a communist regime. And now talking to her, I can sense this huge, it's not just a generational gap, but it's an ideological gap and perception of reality, and how she doesn't understand how the world moves right now, what kind of information sources they are, and how easy or hard things are in society now. So it's this very kind of a lack of alignment in understanding ideology. And another thing is that because she's now 93 years old, she's kind of isolated and at home, not being able to go outside. And the only thing that she looks forward to is actually going only on the street and sitting down on the bench that is in front of our house to meet with other elderly people that are just like her and that also have kind of the same history. And what I find interesting about that is that this bench, this kind of space for exchange and information and to observe your surroundings becomes just the observer are those people coming from another, another era, and the observed, the new generations, the people like me that pass by become this object of observation from like through their prism, through like another kind of propagated ideological viewpoint. So it's very interesting because, yeah, the idea is for those 2 points to meet, but they never really meet because it's this lack of understanding and lack of, it's just, it creates this also echo chamber where elderly people gather and discuss through their own ideas of the world, which is very different from how we perceive it as like this new generation. And here I also draw this correlation between how the bench actually occurred through the isolation of field workers and how elderly people are also isolated from other information sources, and how this bench becomes almost this utopian space where they dream to meet and to connect and to observe and interact with their environment. However, I also, why I'm also not showing any images, I mean, of course, it's a lot of stories, and how I also wrote, I did the research and wrote about this is through collecting stories and through thinking and going back through my memories and conversations with my grandma. Why I did this research is, how I did this research is actually pick an artifact that summarizes those stories. And I think it's also kind of, at this point, I also want to share my method with other designers that research that it's not just, I think also throughout the process, we talked how we want to also decolonize in a way, the way how we research, and the academic research shouldn't be focused on just reading books and materials that are written by someone else, but also researching through our point of view. And I think for that matter, personal stories and memories are very important. But for that to be understood through someone else's perception, I think working with artifacts and proxies that exist in other countries is a very nice and interesting tool. Because I think everyone here knows what a bench is, and everyone can have some sort of association or any type of story, whether it's with their friends sitting on one and having this very nice summer evening where you cannot stop talking, or and I think it's I think looking, or like if you get to read my essay, I'm curious how you would maybe read through your own memories and perceptions and ideas, and hopefully you can also use that in your design practices further on to use your personal experiences and memories. So yeah, thank you.